was one hell of a start for my Miami Dolphins. My Dolphins were doing what they usually do, is create a fiasco, and that's kind of like the excitement for the season. I'm hoping we do something different where we create the fiasco and then we actually perform on the field, but we'll see. So I did that whole fiasco thing yesterday, and I'm looking for some football. So I want to dig in to the Tennessee Titans. They've been a team that I am very, very interested in. Obviously, Tannehill, Finn, and Vrabel is a guy that I really, really like. And Derrick Henry, man, I'm running backs in my heart. And this guy really has brought the dominance of the running back position. He was the first guy to do it the last couple of years. And so Titans are really an exciting team for me. Watching them beat Kansas City last year, watching them beating the Bills last year, undermanned and really doing it in a very tough way. So I started covering them last year, and I really wanted to do more. But this year, I'm going to start from the beginning before the season starts and build up my repertoire and really do a better job covering them, because I do find them and now the Colts and that battle between the two very exciting. But I'm going to do something on the competition between the two before the season starts. But right now, I want to get into what I'm viewing as possibly the most critical position battle or spot on the roster to look at, and that would be left guard. You know, guards are getting a lot more attention. Some people aren't totally fixated on them, but especially for the Titans, this offensive line and that left guard position, which is now vacant, with Saffold III going to the Bills, is a key deal. And you got Brewer and Jones and the rookie, but it looks like the rookie's kind of like in the distance from what I'm hearing. You got Brewer and Jones. So I want to dial into that from what I'm seeing. I'm not a fan. I don't know as much as many fans, but this is what I'm seeing, digging into them for about a year now. So Titans haven't really pulled in a major asset on guard since Nate Davis. And you got 6'1", 295 Brewer going against Jamarco Jones, 6'4", 293. These guys are a little smallish. And then you have Hayden Howerton. I think he was a third-round pick, kind of in a similar vein. But this left guard spot is massive. And I'm going to go back and show you, unless you already know, in the last game you guys played, the divisional round against the Bengals, how critical this spot was. And how, yes, Tannehill is obviously responsible in many ways, but there's way more below that. And I think it centers really on the run game and the inability to get yards before contact. And they were really hindered in this effort. And I think ultimately it was really the major reason why Titans didn't go into the next round. Obviously Tannehill in there, but back and forth. When you go back over that game and you really understand what's going on, this is my contention. So I want to dial into that a little bit more deeply. But before I do that, just want to say a quick shout out to you guys for stopping by. There's plenty of places you could be. Stopping by here, likes, subscribes, and comments, all that stuff is very appreciative. But I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Ace Per Head, because without them, this ain't happening either. Without them and you guys, show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. Again, Tannehill's first throw, pick. Big deal. His last throw, a pick. Big deal. You know, but within that, he did some other stuff that was really good that kind of sort of almost balanced it out into that last pick. But that last pick and the way Tannehill had to play kind of fed into his weaknesses of occasionally getting careless. And that was because the run game wasn't going the way it usually went for the Titans. They're a run-centric team based on defense, with the quarterback making some big plays deep, limiting his turnovers, which is essential, obviously, and putting some stuff on the ground, which he did a lot of that. But when you go back and you look at the stats, obviously you can see right here with this graphic, Burrow, intended air yards, 4.1, and Ryan Tannehill, 10.9. This was a heavy vertical game against a very short game for the Bengals. yak difference, though, 234 to 47. Now, some of this comes into Tannehill's responsibility, but you also have drop percentage, 2.9 versus 8.3. A little bit of a skewed stat because it was one drop by the Bengals and two by the Titans. But in a game this close, turns out to be a big deal. And then you see bad throw percentage. This is where you could really put your hat on where Tannehill made his mistakes. 8.6 for the Bengals, 16.7 for Tannehill. Not good. But, it's easy to say he sucks. That's what a lot of people, when things don't go right, say he sucks. But when you look at it, he was 24th best, which means he had the 24th least bad throw percentage during the course of the season. So this was a poor game for him. But again, it feeds into the narrative and a little bit of the reality that he doesn't come up clutch, kind of chokes a little bit and makes mistakes. But still, when I show you the rest of the stuff around here, you're really going to see, if you haven't already, how critical this offensive line, especially that left guard position, now that it's vacant, is going into the season. A lot of great stuff for the Titans. All these picks that are out there that are still undecided. I forgot how many. I did a podcast a month or so ago. There's like 15 really high-value players that, you're waiting to see what you got from them. And even half could totally turn this team into a different deal. But when you go back over the game itself, that conference game, you can see here, yards before contact, 2.8 for Joe Mixon and only 1.1 for Derrick Henry. Now, D'Onta Foreman had 6, but it was only on 4 carries, and a lot of that came through that one big run. That was an excellent run, and a lot of it came through there where he he did a little step in the hole and got free without really getting touched, and that really extended it. But overall, it was a very poor display of blocking. Now, there's mitigating circumstances in it. It's not all just the offensive line sucked. Some of it was the Bengals had a great front. They really weren't feeling too threatened. They kind of let Brown go off a little bit and shut everyone else down. So there's a lot of mitigating circumstances. But still, when you go back and look at this from Sharp Football Analysis, you can see you got 7 runs behind the left tackle, 5 runs behind the left guard, 4 at the center, 2 at the right guard, and 3 at the right tackle. Both tackles highly substandard. And even really one of your best offensive linemen, Saffold III, struggled. And it was a very poor display on the interior, except for your center and guard, where there were only 6 carries, though. And so the run game and Henry is critical. Henry is an amazing guy. I can't believe he had like 2.3 yards after contact. And so he generated nearly double the yards after contact as the offensive line did before contact. And that is a recipe for disaster. Now, the year average for you guys was still, it wasn't great, but it was 2.3, and you were ranked tied between 18th and 22nd. But 2.3 is over 20% of what the output was that day. And if you had 2.3, you probably would have won the game. Or then, it might have gone differently. Certainly, if they had even higher, if you had 2.8 like the Bengals had, the day wouldn't have come down to Tannehill having to drive in the last few minutes, which, again, that puts him in that problematic zone where he tries to do too much. That gunslinger mentality sometimes works for him, but because his semi-substandard talent at times, the gunslinger can bite him a little bit more than it saves him. But still, he does some great stuff for you. Carried your team really without Henry for a long period of time. And so I do believe there's an avenue with Tannehill to find success, but it's got to come through much better run blocking. And I'm a little concerned considering the Colts brought in Matt Ryan, and that's going to change them a great deal. So if you look at the season, you'll see they had that kind of bottom third yards before contact, right here with this graphic, bottom third receivers getting the ball before contact at 5.5. Intended air yards was, top of the bottom third, around 20 to 22nd with 7.5. So all you're seeing is a lot of conservative play. And that really is what you guys kind of didn't operate with in this game. Bengals really threw you off your game plan, forcing you to throw deep, shutting down that run. And that's really kind of where you started getting off track. But it is based on that run game and the offensive line. Now, if you go back and you look, the time of possession in that game was also 33-25 to 26-35. That's, what is that, 7 minutes? That's a long time. That's half a quarter difference. And the fact that you guys managed to hold this game to that point while beating the snot out of Burrow really shows that this game was yours with some minor adjustments. And the Bengals really kind of stole it from you. Because if the offensive line had gotten better blocking and that run game got going a little bit more, the defense would have been off the field more, and they would have been a little bit more rested, and the game wouldn't have relied on Tannehill. But now here you go back into it again, and these are the things that got to be fixed, which I'm not certain. I would like to hear some comments. I really don't have much information on Brewer and Jones. Got to try to find some tape on these guys. But I really do have somewhat of an emotional investment into you guys because of Vrabel and Tannehill. But I'm very concerned that this thing could be a very hard task now that the Colts have come into the situation the way they have. I do believe Ryan is going to be a big deal. Now, with all that being said, Vrabel, his ability to coach, to me, he's one of the top 3 or 4 head coaches in the league. He's one of the best defensive minds in the league. And like I said, there's this vast array of talent, rookies that we're still waiting to see. So I'm not writing any checks on the Colts taking division. I'm not writing any checks just yet on the Titans taking the division. I do think both the games, the division games between these two teams, are must-watch football for football fans because it's going to be highly exciting. But that left guard spot, everything else seems like it can go just fine. There's so many pieces to come into that cornerback spot to help out that secondary. Defensive line, linebackers is kind of set. Safeties is set. Receiver, we're still waiting to see. But honestly, if this offensive line blocks at a much better clip, even in just postseason and not during the regular season, with Henry and even with Tannehill, there's great opportunity here. So anyway, this is my little take. Let me know what you think. This is Curtis saying thanks for stopping by again. Catch you next time. Be well. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.